All right, let's dive right into today's explainer. We're taking an incredible global journey to check out the fascinating environments where life exists on Earth. We're talking about the wild, wonderful places that animals, plants, and even tiny microscopic creatures actually call home. But first, think about this for a second. Could you survive living underground forever? Or what about down at the bottom of the pitch-black ocean? Imagine having to hold your breath all day long like a whale, or literally digging through the dark, damp dirt with your hands like a mole. Sounds totally impossible for us, right? But for millions of creatures, well, that's just everyday life. Section 1. Welcome to your habitat. To figure out why you can't just pack your bags and move to the ocean floor, we need to define what makes a home an actual home in the natural world. So the absolutely crucial point here is that a habitat is not just an address on a map. A habitat is the specific place where an organism lives and gets literally everything it needs to survive. It's a complete 24/7 life support system.
And what exactly does that life support system look like? Every single habitat acts as this ultimate survival blueprint, and it has to check off 7 huge boxes. It needs to provide water, air, food, light, warmth, protection, and a safe place to reproduce. Honestly, if even one of those is missing, it's just not a viable home for that creature.
Moving on to Part 2, the Great Habitat Tour. It's pretty amazing to see how vastly different these survival blueprints can be across the globe.
If you look at the whole planet, living spaces basically get divided into 4 main zones. We've got the aquatic habitat, the terrestrial and aerial habitat, the soil habitat, and the organismal habitat.
Let's break the first 2 down because the contrasts are kind of extreme. In the aquatic habitat, so oceans, rivers, lakes, you've got low oxygen, really slow temperature changes, and the water itself creates physical resistance when you move. That's where you find fish, whales, jellyfish, and water lilies. But then look over at the terrestrial and aerial habitats, the land and sky. Totally different game. There's plenty of oxygen and a ton of light, but you deal with sudden temperature drops and a huge risk of drying out. This is the domain of birds, insects, foxes, camels, and trees.
But you know, nature loves a good plot twist. Even with these strict environmental rules, animals find amazing workarounds. For instance, whales absolutely dominate the aquatic habitat, but they still have to come up to the surface to breathe air. Meanwhile, up in the aerial habitat, terrestrial birds evolved incredibly light, hollow bones just so they could fly more easily.
Okay, let's look at the other 2. Going down into the upper layer of the Earth, we hit the soil habitat. It is tough down there. Very little light, hardly any air, a super dense structure, and high humidity. It's home to earthworms, moles, millipedes, and soil bacteria. Then there's the organismal habitat, and this one is wild. This is where creatures literally live inside or on the surface of other organisms. We're talking tapeworms, lice, fleas, ticks. They have extremely limited space and constantly have to dodge their host's immune defenses, but hey, they do get constant temperatures and plenty of food.
And here's a super cool fact about those soil dwellers. Earthworms aren't just surviving in that dense dirt, they're actually active engineers. As they move through it, they improve their own habitat, making the soil loose and fertile for plants. Talk about a win-win.
Part 3, why can't organisms swap? With all these different conditions, why can't a bird just decide to move underground, or a fox go live in the sea?
Well, organisms can't just swap homes because it comes down to totally different extremes. Every habitat has its own unique temperature ranges, completely different amounts of water, drastically varying light levels, and totally different oxygen contents. You can't just trade one set of extremes for another and expect to be fine.
Because these organisms are perfectly tuned to their exact living conditions. Swapping fails spectacularly. A fish cannot live long without water. Its body just isn't built to handle air. Similarly, a mole has terrible eyesight because it lives its entire life underground in the pitch black. It relies on totally different senses. Put a mole in a bright forest and it is at a massive disadvantage.
Which leads us to Section 4, the power of adaptation. If animals can't swap habitats, how are they surviving their own extremes?
They do it through adaptations. These are basically special features that help an organism pull off 4 major missions. Number 1, survive the specific conditions of their environment. Number 2, find food effectively. Number 3, grow up to maturity. And number 4, reproduce and pass those awesome traits on to the next generation.
A classic example of mastering these missions? The camel. Camels expertly complete their survival mission in totally dry, hot terrestrial habitats. How?
They can go for a really, really long time without water, all thanks to massive fat reserves stored right in their bodies.
So depending on the habitat, you need totally different evolutionary superpowers. In the water, you need streamlined bodies, fins, gills, and maybe slime or fat layers. On land, you've got to have lungs for breathing air, strong skeletons, limbs to move, and fur or feathers for temperature control. Down in the soil, organisms rock elongated bodies, strong digging muscles, and sensitive antennae. And in that wild organismal habitat, parasites get by using suckers, hooks, their small size, and by reproducing incredibly fast.
Finally, let's zoom out for Section 5. Nature is one system. This is the big picture.
Even though a deep ocean and a dry desert look like they have literally nothing in common, they are part of one highly interconnected Earth. All habitats are linked together. Changes in one single habitat ripple out and affect others, and ultimately, those changes affect all living things, from top predators right down to microscopic bacteria.
So, the big takeaway from all this? Earth's incredible diversity of life only exists because of these vastly different habitats and the mind-blowing adaptations organisms develop just to survive in them. Different habitats support totally different forms of life, and every organism is a master of its own specific home.
Which leaves us with one final, incredibly important thought. Protect nature. Preserve it, and we preserve life on our planet. If we want to protect all these fascinating life forms we've talked about today, we absolutely have to protect their homes. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Next time you look out your window, ask yourself, what interconnected habitat is sitting right in my own backyard, and what can I do to protect it?